Hi everyone, thank you so much for stopping by my channel because today I am talking about the major debate going on in the sports world. The debate about Deflategate. It's a lot of rhyming right there. But the report was finally released by the investigator Wells, and it came out through the NFL and actually all of the other sports channels as well. And people are getting pretty pissy about it. And like I said, there's a lot of debate going on. The report was more than 240 pages or something like that. So there's a lot of information in there, which is good because you want the investigator to be thorough. But there's a lot of information. So obviously that means there's a lot of debatable points and people are definitely bickering on both sides. But I feel like there are definitely a couple of points that I want to highlight because I really want to make sure that they don't get lost in the shuffle. Because apparently I think my opinion is the most important and that I should make sure I make a video about it. But anyway, these are the things that I find to be the most compelling with what's going on as a result of Deflategate and the report of it. Okay, so just to recap, Deflategate is what happened during the AFC Championship football game between the New England Patriots and the Indianapolis Colts. Basically, the accusation was that the New England Patriots purposefully reduced the pounds of pressure inside the football. You know, that's obviously inflated. They purposely reduced the amount of pressure so that Tom Brady, the quarterback, could grip the ball a little bit better. If it wasn't as tight, he could get a little bit more pressure into, I don't know, I guess into holding onto the ball. I am not a pro quarterback, so I wouldn't know otherwise. But apparently there's this rule that there must be a certain amount of pounds of pressure in the inflated footballs. And supposedly the New England Patriots decided, we don't care that there's a rule, so we're gonna make ours a little bit squishier. And the question was, did it actually happen? Was it intentional? Who did it? Who knew about it and didn't do anything else about it? And here we go, we wind up having this championship game and the balls were found to be, after the game, they were squishier, meaning less pounds of pressure than they were supposed to be. So the question was why and who done it, basically. So to start off with, without going into all of the details of the report, basically the report issued by this guy named Wells indicates that it is, quote, more probable than not that the balls were, and now I'm summarizing, that the balls were purposely deflated, that 2 employees were responsible for doing it, that it was more probable than not that Tom Brady, the quarterback, knew about it, and that also upper management and the owners did not know about it, which kind of makes sense. I'm glad that they differentiated that way. As the coach, he doesn't micromanage all of those tiny little details. He probably does not have the time to go and squeeze all of the footballs prior to a game. That's micromanaging. That's not part of what he does. The problem that people are having right now is the phrase more probable than not. That doesn't mean that you've found anything compelling or specific or that it was based on fact and you're just kind of guessing, and I disagree. They use that phrase very specifically during that report a number of times to say it is, again, it is more probable than not. In court, I mean, of course, for something like a murder charge, you have to be found guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. In civil court, however, you have to have a preponderance of the evidence, which is basically what more probable than not is. Except we're not actually in a court of law, so quite frankly, the standard or the level of guilt doesn't even need to be as high as what is mandated by civil court. So more probable than not means that they had more evidence indicating that it happened than it didn't. Now, why are they saying more probable than not? Well, this goes now to my next point. There are a series of text messages, print, things that are factual. There are a series of text messages between the locker room attendant and one of the equipment assistants. So between the 2 of them, their text messages are indicating, by the way, the locker room, let me be specific. The locker room, what's he called? The locker room attendant actually calls himself the deflator. In print, uses that word. I'm sorry, that seems like that could be fact and goes above and beyond the more probable than not argument. Another point that I want to make is that I'm really bothered by the fact that Tom Brady didn't bother to give up his phone with his own text messages. That's kind of like when you're asked to take a breathalyzer and you refuse. Pretty much that means your ass is drunk. And by refusing, you're putting your guilt out there, and you can stand on your morals and say, well, it's not your right. That's my own personal protected property and I don't have to show you. Okay, you're right. You don't have to show us anything. However, if you got nothing to hide, put it out there, man. Show yourself. Give us your phone. You didn't though, and now you make me question you. Going along those same lines, I have another problem. Big surprise. Kraft, the owner of the New England Patriots, comes out today and releases his response statement and says, and actually has been saying this entire time, that the New England Patriots organization has been doing nothing except give their full cooperation. No, you didn't. Tom Brady is an employee of your organization, and in defense of your own organization, I don't know, you might want to have had to, you might want to have talked to him and asked him to release his phone, but yet you didn't, which kind of makes me wonder, do you think that he's hiding something? The fact that there is no full disclosure, and the more you keep saying that there is full disclosure, makes me think that the disclosure in totality is not full. So let me move on for just a few brief moments and talk about some of the theoretical stuff. I mean, I've been trying to talk about fact primarily, but now let's kind of talk about some of the discussion here. This whole thing, Deflategate, came out of the AFC Championship game. It was to determine who was going to the Super Bowl. It turns out it was a blowout. Against the Indianapolis Colts, the final score was 45-7. The Colts got one touchdown. And I don't know the actual breakdown of it, but the Patriots scored a lot to total 45 points in either field goals or touchdowns or whatever. Again, this was the game where the balls were supposedly deflated, and people have been saying, well, it was a blowout. It wouldn't have changed the outcome of the game, so it actually doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. I say it actually does matter, because if the balls were deflated and if Tom Brady was able to make one play that he might not have otherwise been able to make, that could have changed the entire dynamics of the game. There have been countless movies about how, and I can't think of the one in particular, I think it had Gwyneth Paltrow in it. Don't quote me in case I'm wrong. But you know, where you gotta decide to go left or right. And if you go right, a whole series of events happens. And if you go left, a whole entirely different series of events happened. So again, if we changed one play during that game, who knows what would have happened? Would it have been a blowout? Would the Patriots still have won? Would plays have been different and a player been injured as a result of different plays? Which then might have affected, again, not only the outcome of that game or the outcome of the Super Bowl, even if the Patriots continued to make it on. So the same thing follows, that if you change one thing, and in this case, the pressure of your balls, that sounds really weird, but if you change the pressure of your balls, if you change one thing, the amount of different consequences is endless. And so you can't help but wonder at the end of the day, what if things had been different? And what if they had actually followed the rules that day? And what if the balls were pressurized to the point that they were supposed to be? What would have been different? Something else that no one is kind of really talking about, although the fact was mentioned and I did verify it, is that the locker room attendant has been with the Patriots for 32 years. 32 years, and is this the first time that he's actually done something where he kind of bended the rules a little bit? Now, I am not in any way accusing him of having done anything else. I have no idea. I'm not that close to the whole situation to even begin to make that assumption, nor am I even making that accusation. However, I am absolutely allowed to wonder, what if? If he was there for 32 years, what if he had done something else prior? I am allowed to wonder, just as a normal, regular spectator, which I'm not because I am a big football fan. But I am allowed to wonder, even as just a normal spectator, a normal person living on the earth, I am allowed to wonder what else. Because if you were willing and able to actually commit that infraction during that time, during this game after 32 years, I am allowed to validly wonder, what else have you done? Maybe nothing, but the question is there, and I'm allowed to wonder it. So finally, the last thing that I want to highlight and make a point to mention has to do with the PSI factor, pounds per square inch. I will validly say that the amount of difference between what the balls were supposed to be and what they actually were was not all that big. I forget the actual number, so don't quote me, but let's say the balls were supposed to have 12 pounds per square inch. It's not like they had 5. It's not like they had been deflated purposely to 5. You know, it really was a difference of a pound or maybe a pound and a half at most. I remember when I heard the stat that it wasn't really that big. And even I initially went, it's not that big a deal. Well, then you really kind of think of it. If it wasn't such a big deal, if a little pound per square inch really doesn't matter, then why have the rule? The rule exists for a reason. Balls must be set to a certain standard so that there is an even playing field, no pun intended. And the Patriots and the employees of the Patriots and potentially Tom Brady didn't follow the rule. And you're not just allowed to decide not to follow the rule. You don't get to pick and choose. There is a rule. The pounds per square inch mattered enough to make the rule, so you need to follow the rule. The other thing is that it's not even like this is a white lie. You know, when you have, let's say, a piece of information and you purposely choose not to tell somebody that information, that's kind of a white lie. So you're not directly speaking a lie. But in this case, the balls were purposefully and intentionally deflated. With purpose. It's not a white lie. It's a full-on lie. Liar, liar. You deflated the balls because they were less than they were supposed to be. And I don't have a lot of respect for that. That actually just makes me really mad and really frustrated. And they actually tarnished the game. And I don't know if the end of the game would have changed. Who knows? Whether we're talking the AFC Championship game or the Super Bowl against the Seahawks. I don't know. There's no way to know. But the fact of the reality is that it absolutely could have been different if you had played fairly. You cheated. Like Rachel's mom says on Friends when she's talking to Rachel about Ross and the whole "we were on a break" fiasco. Once a cheater, always a cheater. Well, now I think you're cheaters. For real. I mean, you don't get to do something like that during such a critical time. Not that games during the regular season are less critical, but you did it during the most important games. And you didn't come forth and say that you did it during that time. You let it go, which makes you a coward, which really pisses me off. So let me put in a final disclaimer. I am absolutely, without a doubt, a Seahawks fan. So yeah. I was kind of upset when we lost the Super Bowl in the last couple of, it wasn't even the last couple of minutes. It was like the last minute. But the points that I've tried to make today are irrelevant of whatever team I'm rooting for. Again, I was talking about factual things. He called himself the deflator. Tom Brady did not give up his phone. And we have the right to wonder all about all of the what ifs. If things had been set in motion differently from the beginning and the rules had been followed. And yeah, now I think you're a cheater, regardless of who you were playing. But I'm still really mad and frustrated about the whole situation. So please tell me what you think. Please be kind to each other too in your comments that you make. We're just trying to have a debate and a discussion, and you immediately annihilate your own point if you start being mean to someone else, by the way. So share your points and have the debate. It's human nature and it's brain stimulation and it's awesome. But please be kind to the people that you're debating, and be kind to me if you've got something to say to me. So thank you for hearing me out. I do appreciate your support. And if you haven't already subscribed, I would love it and be really grateful if you did. You can check me out on Twitter and Instagram. And until then, go Hawks. And I cannot wait for football to start again. Thanks.